everyone, my name is Gloria and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite things that have happened this year, or favorite things that I've tried this year or bought this year or have this year. We can all agree that this year has been a trial, that this year has been tough, that there were some bleak moments, that people were sad. It's been an emotional year. But I also want to acknowledge that there are some good things that have come out of this year. There are some things that were highlights that brought joy in my life, and I want to acknowledge those things. And some of them are super trivial and random and like material things, and some are just bigger moments and more things that have actually like changed my day-to-day life and whatnot. It's a somewhat brief list. Actually, I don't know, it's probably not that brief. This video actually might be quite long, and it's in no particular order. But I did want to say it's kind of cheesy, it's kind of a cop-out, but first and foremost, like favorite thing or thing that has got me through this year is my husband, of course. This year would have sucked a lot more without him. He's an incredible man, and we've gone through some trials this year of just figuring out what our life and routine looks like because he lost his job, and now we are temporarily living long distance from each other, which has been a whole other challenge. We got married in 2019, but the majority of 2020 has been our first year of marriage. But yeah, just want to give him a shout out for being the best person ever. I'll insert a picture so you know how cute he is. My husband is a really good lead-in into the number one thing that has changed this year and number one thing that has been a favorite of this year, and that is Lexi. Come here. Hi, Lex. You want to say hi to the camera? She's the number one thing that has changed in our life this year. I call her our COVID baby because if it wasn't for COVID, we never would have got a little Kit Kat. She doesn't really want to stay in my arms, I don't think. No? Okay. Here you go. You can go play. She'll probably be making a lot of noise throughout this video. But my cat. I'll try to give a brief story of how we got this cat. I'll start off by saying I did not want a cat. I didn't want any pets. I grew up on a farm. I grew up with cats and dogs, but they were always outdoors. They're like farm animals. I didn't really grow up with like cuddly pets at home. And on the opposite end, my husband has grown up with cats always in his home. So when we got married, we talked about it, and he also wants a dog at some point. I was like, nope, no pets for the time being. I'm just not ready, and I'm primarily gonna be the one who's more at home because he works like a regular 9-to-5 job, and because of that I'll have to be the main caretaker and caregiver of these pets, and I don't really want to do that. That's just a responsibility that I don't want to have. So I said, you know, when we get pets, if we have kids someday and a family, you and the kids can take care of these pets. I don't really want anything to do with them. So that was kind of the main stance. And then COVID kind of happened, and around that time in March, April, I started seeing so many cute pictures of cats on Instagram, like people getting cats and whatnot. And I made this like one little offhand comment during dinner, basically saying like, oh, it's kind of cute. I could sort of see like having a cat someday. And that like triggered something in my husband. He's like, oh my God, okay. I sort of pulled her to my side. So then he started showing me all of these things on Craigslist and all of these adoption sites and all of these different things about cats. And then I kept going back and forth of really wanting one and not wanting one. And I suffer from decision fatigue. I hate making decisions. I'm very indecisive, and then when it comes to like making big decisions, I just get really overwhelmed and just don't want to make one. So that really worked to his advantage because we kept going back and forth. At this point in COVID, he had lost his job, so he was home all day. So he kind of was like, this would be the perfect time to get a cat because I would be able to take care of it. After several weeks of going back and forth, I was working. He comes in, it's like 6 p.m. He's like, hey babe, I know that you said you didn't want to get a cat, but here's this cute little picture of a cat, and it's on Craigslist, and I was the first to respond, and we have to decide in 10 minutes whether we want to keep it or not because this cat's really popular and the people are going to give it away to someone else. And at that point, I was so over it, so I was like, sure, whatever. And then lo and behold, this little cat shows up in our life, and mostly me went from like not giving a crap about cats to being a very extreme, intense cat parent. Just, we didn't have anything else to do during COVID, so we took care of this cat and we showed her some tricks, and then we wanted to be an adventure cat and want her to go outside on a leash and all this stuff. She's definitely been a big 2020 change and a big favorite. I can do a whole video about Lexi because she's a special one. She's also a very different and unique cat. We think she's a Maine Coon mix. She's super high energy, like the most crazy cat. And that's not just me, like anyone who interacts with her will say that she's a little bit of a psycho. She has super high energy, runs around, gets intense, gets crazy, and then she's also like the sweetest little girl in the world and will like come on your lap and sit and nap and be cute and cuddly. And it's been give and take, right? So she's been a favorite, but I've also had moments where I literally hate her and don't want her in my life because she bites a lot. We try to do all of the things that the internet tells you to do to not get your cat to bite, but she bites the heck out of us, particularly like grabbing onto our forearm or arms or wrists or feet, and she'll just grab on and bunny kick and bite down, and it's starting to hurt because she's getting out of her kitty phase. So that's been not fun. But besides that, she's changed her life for the better, I think. It's been a lot of fun. It's been an adventure. If you want to see all of her adventures, go check out Instagram. I'll link her below. That's her Instagram cat account. Mostly we just put all of our pictures that we take of her on there because we take so many. She's a cutie and she's definitely a favorite. So that's like the biggest change this year and the biggest favorite. Moving on to less bigger things and just little things that are favorites this year. I am not a coffee drinker, but if I go to a coffee shop or something, I will get some kind of coffee drink, maybe. But I'm primarily a tea drinker. My husband also does not drink coffee, so we don't have like a coffee machine at home or any coffee stuff at all. But we do drink a lot of tea. I drink tea daily, multiple times a day. I like black tea in the mornings, but I have very low tolerance to caffeine. So around like past 2 p.m., I probably won't drink anything caffeinated. And that's why my favorite tea at the moment this year is Meadow by Stephen Smith Tea Maker. This is a local Portland brand. My sister introduced me to this. My favorite way to make it is you put it in a pot, you put in like a bigger teapot, 2 tea bags of this stuff, a slice and squeeze of lemon, maybe some ginger. We have a ton of mint growing outside, so I'll pluck a few mint leaves and throw that in, and then put in some honey, and then pour it and drink it in a little cup and have like 12 little cups. It's the best. I really love the flavor profiles in this tea. It's chamomile, rooibos, hyssop, and rose petals. I am looking for a loose leaf version of this flavor profile because this comes in individual tea bags like this, and I find that can be wasteful compared to a loose leaf variety. So I think I might have found a comparable loose leaf variety, but I've yet to order it because I want to finish this first before I add more tea to my tea collection. Since we're in the food and beverage topic, I'll talk about some of my favorite foods this year. One of my absolute favorite dishes and meals that we have this year is this kale salad. This kale salad is primarily inspired and mostly the recipe from this 6 Seasons A New Way with Vegetables cookbook. 2 of our dearest friends are wonderful cooks in the kitchen. They always just know what to do with vegetables and how to make them taste delicious. And we were over for dinner once and they made this kale salad and it was an instant hit. And I went through a whole phase in the summer being obsessed with the salad and eating it on a weekly basis. This is primarily like a summer fall salad because it's when kale is in season. It's the dinosaur kale. You strip it, you chop it, you make a dressing of olive oil, lemon, and garlic, salt and pepper, then you massage the kale, and then you add a ton of Parmesan cheese, and you can add some breadcrumbs or some pumpkin seeds, and it is the tastiest thing in the world. It's just a game changer in my life. So that was the #1 favorite thing. I am very new to cooking. I do enjoy cooking, I just don't know kind of where to start sometimes, but I really like chili, so I decided to like try this chili recipe earlier this year, and I really enjoyed it, and it was super fun to make, and now I've made it several times and I totally love it. This chili recipe is super hearty and warm and delicious. I'm a really big fan of roasted potatoes and roasted Brussels sprouts. Those were big favorites this year, and I like roasting them and then having them as a dinner side, and then I also love them left over as breakfast, and I'll reheat them on a skillet, get them all crispy, and then I'll scramble some eggs in and have it with hot sauce and ketchup, and it's the tastiest breakfast. I don't eat breakfast a lot, but when I do, savory breakfast all the way. Another favorite this year is plants. Before I was married, I could care less about plants. Before I had like my own real space. My mom is super into plants. She has like over 80 houseplants. My sister is super into plants. And then I got my kind of own space and I started falling in love with plants. It brings me so much joy to like take care of it, to see new growth and new leaves come out. I have some plants on the shelf, and I have a lot more plants in my home. So I counted and I'm at 31 houseplants, which is quite quite my fair share. I inherited some this year from my sister because she moved and she didn't take some of them, including this beautiful Monstera. But I have a few favorites and I'll just insert clips of those. Next, I'll be talking about some board games. My husband and I are huge board game people, and a lot of the ones that we owned were for more than 2 people. So when pandemic hit and we were quarantined and it was just us two, we had to find all the 2-player board games that there were. So we supported some local board game shops here in Portland. We found some really fun games. The first one that we loved is Bonanza. This is a super fun game where there's different cards that are different kinds of beans and they have different values, and it's a trading game and you have to collect a certain amount of beans and then harvest them for points. This game can actually be played with up to 7 people, and the different amounts of people have slight rule changes, but we really love the 2-player version of this game. Highly recommend it. The next 2-player game that we loved is Patchwork. I will edit that to say that I loved. I don't know if my husband loves it, because when we bought this and played it, he could not win for maybe like the first 10 times we played it, and he tends to be a little bit of a sore loser. If he can't win something, he then doesn't ever want to play it. But I mean, who isn't like that? You don't always want to keep losing at games, otherwise you don't ever want to play it because you don't have a chance. So I get that. The premise is that there's different shaped patches of quilt that are kind of like Tetris pieces, and you have your own little board. You on your turn get to pick a certain piece and fill out your board, and then you try to fill out the most amount of space on your little board with these little Tetris pieces of patchwork. Really fun, really enjoyed this as a 2-player game, highly recommend. Next, this is actually a newer game to us. We were just recently introduced to this and borrowed it from a friend of ours, and I fell in love with it. It's called Morels. The premise of this game is that you're foraging mushrooms in the woods. It's mainly a card game where you collect a certain amount of mushrooms and then you get to cook them for points. I thought the game is really fun, the gameplay is really enjoyable, the cards are really lovely and beautiful. We bought this at one of our local game shops, and the guy said this is their top selling 2-player game this year. So if that isn't a recommendation, I don't know what is. And then finally, this is actually a 4-player game, but can be played with 2 players as well. It's Azul. This game is a little bit hard to describe, but I will say that it's beautiful. For me, why I enjoy this game so much, regardless of whether I win or not, is that it's somehow really like peaceful to play. You basically have to collect certain tile pieces and place them on your board in certain spaces, and you collect points that way. Really fun, highly recommend this game. And we're always on the lookout for new games, so if you have any recommendations, shout them our way. Along the same lines of board games, I will say one of my favorite apps this year, which is also a game, is Heads Up. We were in Disney World pre-pandemic in January of 2020 with my husband, and we were in line for Hagrid's Motorbike Adventure, and we were in line for a really long time. There was a couple that was our age in front of us in line, and they were playing this game. We were like, that's a great idea. So I downloaded the game and I downloaded a bunch of decks, and that is how we spent all of our time waiting in the Disney World and Universal parks. Highly recommend doing that. I don't know if theme parks are even open yet, but if they are, or when you find yourself at one in the future, highly recommend downloading Heads Up. It's super fun to play it during waiting in line. It's really easy to play. It's your phone, so you probably already have it with you. You don't have to bring anything else. If you don't know, you take turns. One person has to hold it on their forehead and they don't see what's on the phone, and the other person has to describe what that word is. It's meant to be a game for a group of people, but we actually prefer playing it one-on-one because then there's like not a billion people shouting and you don't even know who's describing what. And if you're a Harry Potter fan, I would also recommend the Harry Potter deck because that's been a lot of fun. To not make this video super long, I'm gonna try to wrap it up, but my last like 2 to 3 categories is entertainment, which is books, TV shows, and movies. I will say my TV show watching has decreased immensely. I used to binge watch a lot of TV shows when I was single, not so much anymore, and I also got really into reading this year, so I spent a lot more of my free time reading than actually watching any TV shows. But my husband and I watch TV shows and movies together. The standout show of the year for us is The Office. I have never watched it before. I tried to get into it and I watched like the first 2 episodes of the first season. Didn't even crack a smile. I was like, this humor is not for me. It's not my kind of show. So I missed out on all of the Office references for the last however many years. My husband has watched a handful of the episodes, but not the whole show through. So we decided to watch it this year. And we're almost done. We have 1 season left. Hopefully we'll finish in this month before it goes off Netflix. Sad. But yeah, that has been the standout show of the year. I wouldn't say it's a all-time favorite show ever. I still prefer Friends and still prefer some other TV shows. But we did really enjoy it and I really enjoyed watching it together. So I highly recommend, if you haven't seen The Office yet, which I don't know who that is because I'm pretty sure every person in the world has seen The Office and we were the last 2. But if you haven't seen it, highly recommend watching it with someone. I think it makes it a more enjoyable experience to watch it with someone so you guys can like laugh together. I don't know. I feel like it wouldn't be as fun watching it alone than it would be watching it with someone, at least for the first time. Really enjoyed watching it together. And then favorite movie. This movie actually came out in 2019, I believe end of November 2019. My husband and I didn't watch it until I think January, February of 2020. We absolutely loved it. We rewatched it just recently. Love it even more. We don't really understand why this movie got 0 hype and 0 marketing. It has some really big actors in it, like Daniel Craig and Chris Evans. So we don't know why not a lot of people have heard about this. Maybe now that it's been out for over a year, people have heard about it. This movie is so good. It's a murder mystery whodunit. It's very clever, beautiful cinematography and filming. This is definitely like moved up there into probably like my maybe top 10 movies. Highly recommend if you haven't watched it yet. So great. All right, final category is books. Obviously, I'm going to be talking about my favorite books of the year in another video, but I just want to mention a few points. Favorite ways to read books, 2 things. 1, Libby. This is an app where you connect your library card and there's a whole database of audiobooks and Kindle ebooks that are available for you for free. This is primarily where I got into reading. I did mostly only listen to audiobooks and then I discovered the library this year. Totally just have not used my library in years. And then I really miss reading physical copies of books and I don't really want to just buy and own a ton of books, especially if I don't know if I'm going to like them or not. So I started using my library. That is primarily now the 2 ways that I read books, is audiobooks on Libby and getting books from the library. Stay tuned for another video where I will be talking about my actual 2020 favorite books of the year and favorite author and stuff like that. That wraps up this video. Those are the favorite and standout things and moments that happened this year. Thanks so much for watching and I'll see you in another video. Bye!